I guess maybe the bigger question is where are you with Joe Judge? Do you think that he's the right head coach to take this team forward, or do you think this needs to be everybody out? Joe Marino and Kyle Crabbs from the Draft Network. And Kyle, the NFC least standings are shaping up to just have quite the race,
battle
quite
for the
finish. Got 3 teams with 7 losses, and the division is currently led by the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 3-5-1.
And should have been swept by the New York Giants nonetheless.
Should have, right? And that's where we want to focus our conversation, is on the New York Football Giants, the 3-7 New York Giants. That they're in it, man. Say what you want about 3-7. They're in it, just like they're in every game this year. And I think you and I have a fundamental disagreement on what the objective here should be for the New York Giants. I say take advantage of the opportunity, go try to win this division, build some momentum, and go compete. I don't know that you're not like in the same boat as me. What's up, man?
Anybody who's in the building is going to have that mentality, and they should have that mentality. The players are playing to win the game. The coach is coaching to win the game. But my argument would be, what is best for the long-term view of the New York Giants? And I am not convinced that a hollow 6-10 division title this year is what is in the best interests of the New York Giants long term, because if they win and they're 6-10, it's like that team every year that inevitably gets unreasonably hot at the end of the year, despite the fact that the team is not very good. There's fundamental issues with the team. Last year, 2 examples already. The New York Giants or New York Jets came to mind. They finished the year 6-2 in their final 8 games. And I don't know if you heard Jamal Adams with his podcast spot. Did you hear what he had to say about the end of the season? So the end of the 2019 season, the Jets finished the season 6-2, and they get in the locker room and they're 7-9. And Jamal Adams went on a podcast and he said, I'm looking around and everybody has a round of applause that we finished 7-9. Like that's some great accomplishment. They don't want to win in New York, and he's talking about the Jets, not the Giants. But the Atlanta Falcons did the same thing, where they got unreasonably hot. And it gave this ownership and organization false securities about who they were as a team. And I think you look at the New York Giants, you look at the direction under Dave Gettleman, the issues that they've had with committing to a coach for more than 2 years at a time. And to me, all winning the division is going to do is give ownership a false perception of what their team is and what needs to be done to fix it.
So it sounds like you believe that the number one thing that needs to happen for the New York Giants to find sustainable success is to rid themselves of David Gettleman. And you fear that a 6-10 division championship gives ownership the reason to cling to Gettleman and think, wow, we're in this thing, and
we're on the
one
right
more
track.
offseason.
We were the best team in the East this year.
Why can't you have both? That's my argument. Go ahead, be 6-10, win the NFC East, but also say goodbye to David Gettleman and bring in some new leadership to shape this roster better than he's been able to accomplish. That's my thing. I don't think that a 6-10 division title precludes David Gettleman from being on the outs.
That's fair, but do you trust Giants ownership to think that way?
I think the Giants ownership has been fiercely loyal for the most part over –
except for head coaches.
Well,
because
recently, right?
Their last 3 head coaching hires, they've had 3 head coaching hires in 5 years now.
But they were very committed to coaches in the past. You think about Tom Coughlin. They were willing to roll with him for a while. I think they've had some mistakes that they realized in Shermer and Ben McAdoo, and they quickly moved on there. And so I do think that gives something for me to point to as somebody who says, yeah, I'm okay with having both here. I'm okay with the 6-10 division championship. And I'm also okay with believing that Giants ownership will recognize what this team is and find new leadership when it comes to personnel. Now, this team forward, or do you think this needs to be everybody out?
I think if you're going to make changes, you need to make sweeping changes, because this is the toxic cycle that teams start to fall into. in which you very rarely see it work out well. A previous regime makes a quarterback decision, and then they bring in a different head coach to pair with that quarterback once that quarterback's already established. And then now we're going to fire the GM, and a new GM's going to have to come in with an established quarterback and an established head coach, neither of which picked each other, and the GM didn't pick either one either. So as pressure mounts that you have to win, what's going to happen in-house? Well, it's not my problem because I didn't pick the head coach or I didn't pick the quarterback. So then you get this toxic kind of infighting where instead of everybody moving in the same direction towards a single goal, it almost, you get this Game of Thrones type vibe where it's like chaos is a ladder and I got to do what I can to make sure my job security is safe because we're not performing as a team. So that scares the hell out of me. So if I were the Giants, that's what I would do.
That's a good reference. That's a tremendous insert of a Game of Thrones. Chaos is a ladder. You're exactly right. I love that. I can't wait to use that in my future and then not give you any credit for that. So one thing we haven't even got into with this discussion is the draft order dynamics. If the Giants wind up finishing about where they are, they're going to be picking 7, 8, 9, 10
Unless
at the worst, somewhere in there.
You're picking 19.
You win the division, you're picking 19, 20, assuming you lose in the first round of the playoffs. How much does that weigh into this for you? Because, I mean, on top of being one and done, 6 and 10, winning the division, you're also losing yourself probably a top 10 pick to pick around 20 instead. Does that matter for you?
It hurts. I mean, it definitely doesn't help because I don't think the Giants are one of those teams that can look themselves in the mirror and say, we're a player away, right? So I think you have the opportunity if you pick 10, but you feel like your nucleus is good to potentially trade out of that and get more ammunition to fill more spots on your team. But as you're looking for an identity and with a new coach and Joe Judge, the identity of this team has kind of shifted versus what Pat Shurmur had it to be and what Joe Judge wants it to be as a super blue collar lunch pail, grind you out type of team. I think you need keystones and cornerstones to build around for that identity if you're going to make that marriage and do this long term. But we've seen from other Bill Belichickian disciples like Matt Patricia in Detroit is a great example, right? Of like, if you let the pendulum swing with your investments into this ideology and it doesn't work, well, now you've got a bunch of square pegs and round holes. So getting a blue chip player, you feel better about that player forecasting into any kind of system and being more of a universal player. So that for me is the hardest pill to swallow about picking 6 through 8 versus picking 19, or heaven forbid they win a playoff game. And now you're talking about them picking like 25.
Well, we could have a little bit of the New York Jets dynamic just carrying over to the Giants, where you replace your general manager, and hopefully that happens. They get new leadership, but then that new general manager kind of rides with that quarterback that they didn't pick and the coach, right? So Joe Judge sticks just like Adam Gase stuck, evaluate things after the 2021 season and go from there.
You're picking one. That's how it worked out for the Jets.
It's
so
messy.
That's I guess the philosophical divide between the two. And Joe, I think you bring up reasonable points to have your cake and eat it too. But I'm just scared if you get your cake, you're not going to be convinced you need to leave the party. So it'll be a really interesting final stretch for the New York Giants as they make their push towards an NFC East division type championship in 2020.